My favorite traditions is about the statement Samura ibn Jundub عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. Imam al-Bayhaqi relates it, and even though some have said that it's weak, it's also has other narrations, and Ibn Taymiyyah said it's marfu' and mawquf, but its meaning is certainly absolutely sound, which is kullu mu'dibin, and in a riwayah kullu adibin yuhibbu an tu'ta ma'dubatuhu. Every host of a banquet loves that his banquet is attended. And then it said, وَمَأْدُبَةُ اللَّهِ الْقُرْآنِ. The banquet of God is the Qur'an. فَلَا تَهْجُرُوهُ. So don't miss out. Don't not show up to the banquet. This is God's banquet. And it's beautiful because ma'duba, which there's a dhamma over the dal, is also related to ma'daba, which is the ma'daba is the place where you learn to discipline, you learn discipline. And so again, we get back to taqwa and disciplining the soul. And so it's really important during this time to work on disciplining yourself. Try not to overeat. One of the things about the body, the Prophet ﷺ said that it's enough for the son of Adam to have just luqaymat, small morsels that keep the back straight. But if you have to, then a third for food, a third for air, a third for water. But that's if you have to. The origin is the luqaymat, which is how the Prophet ﷺ lived. And one of the things we know now in physiology is that you do need a certain amount of food to sustain your health, and you shouldn't do anything that will harm that. But one of the things that we've found, most people do overeat, and that the less you eat before you get to that point beyond which is dangerous, your body actually gets better physiologically at using the caloric energy that's given through the food. And so the body actually becomes better and more efficient. But when we overeat, we fall into all these health, and that's why sumu tasahhu is a hadith that's related in a lot of the books. Fast and become well. So there's actually, and now we know all this about intermittent fasting. Now everybody talks about intermittent fasting, but we have always had this because our bodies are actually designed to spend periods of time without food, and it's a healthy thing. It's a good thing. So not overeating, and then also just guarding the tongue, backbiting, which is such a problem. And people don't realize, but your comments on the internet they're also forms of backbiting, and just it's very sad that so many people don't realize that putting it on there is like permanently. Like anybody who reads it after that, if it's a negative remark, especially if there's obscenities, and unfortunately, I mean, I think most of these people are trolls and they're not actually Muslims. They just use Muslim names, because I couldn't imagine any Muslims speaking so foully. I mean, at least not a practicing Muslim, because the Prophet ﷺ said that the believer is not foul, and one of the signs of the latter days is yadhar al-fuhsh wa tafahush, that obscenities will become commonplace, and he also said tafahush, which because an obscenity usually occurs through spontaneity. Somebody just spontaneously says something out of anger, but tafahush is actually to do it affectedly, as an effect. And now people say it like they're nothing. It's as if these words no longer have meaning. I mean, when I was young, you never heard in public spaces the type of foul language that you hear now, just commonplace amongst people. It's a very bad sign, and Toynbee marks it as one of the hallmarks of a civilization on its way out, and which I know there's a lot of people that think they'll be happy when they see the collapse of this civilization, but the truth is they have no idea what's coming. People have no idea what social order is, and when things break down, what happens. And if it's going to happen, I mean, there's nothing that can stop it. These are things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decrees, and when they happen, لا يستقدمونه ولا يستأخرونه ساعة, and they can't bring it forward and they can't delay it. But we should do everything to want to maintain social order, public order, because of the blessings of living in a time of peace wherever you are. And if there isn't peace, you should be doing everything you can to work toward peace, because it's horrible, especially for women and children and elderly people. I mean, young people, unfortunately, there's a kind of excitement that goes with war, and this is one of the things that Dorothy Sayers mentions in her book, Prisons We Choose to Live In, where she talks about nobody ever wants to talk about the attraction that young people have to war, young men in particular. And until we deal with that, we'll never deal with preventing wars. And this is why the Jahili Arabs were very well aware of that. In the Sahih of al-Bukhari, the lines of Imr al-Qais about war being seductive to every young ignoramus are actually mentioned. They were Jahili lines of poetry, but the Sahaba considered them worthy of repeating during times of fitna. So our globe is obviously going through a lot, and many places there's incredible difficulty and hardship. And those of us who are blessed to be in places where we're not experiencing a lot of the things that other people are experiencing, it's a time to really magnify those blessings and avoid complaining. I mean, people will complain about the fact that the samosa wasn't cooked properly or something like that. I mean, really stupid things to complain about. We should just really try to avoid complaining as much as possible, and then also trying to unite people, because I've been thinking a lot just about conflict theory, and there are real forces out there that are trying to really create a lot of conflict in our societies all around the world, because there are committed ideologues, enthusiasts that actually believe that conflict is a good thing until the Great Revolution comes and until the great egalitarian society is created through some kind of utopian dream. And this is a real problem, because these people work towards creating confrontation between the young and the old, between the male and the female, between the different various ethnicities and races. I mean, these are all demonic forces working in the world. And our tradition is a tradition that brings people together. Our tradition is a tradition that makes brothers and sisters of different groups. And if people say that the Muslims themselves don't live up to that, it doesn't matter. That's their business. It's not our business. It's their business. Our business is to do it ourselves, for us to live up to the truth of this faith and to live according to the principles that the Prophet ﷺ gave us. Because that's the religion. What people do is what they do. And whether it's in accordance with the religion or not is determined by whether they're following our prophetic tradition or not. That's how it's determined. And otherwise, it's just a free-for-all. So those Muslims that are dishonoring Islam or are themselves wrongdoers and sinners and people of arrogance or whatever sinfulness that they're expressing, those are all in spite of their faith. They're not because of their faith. And so that's where we have to get back to, is recognizing, what does our faith say? Not what do Muslims do?